All participants are unmuted.
But with the virus, we ought to do as much as we can online and communicate back and forth. I think we can do a lot of it and maybe cut some of these meetings out, having to, for instance, when people come before us, agencies come before us, let them do it in writing and send us a letter. Uh, Be it one of the constitutional officers, whoever comes, social services, let's see if they can do that in writing rather than us having to have a public hearing. And that's just my feeling. I don't know about the rest of them.
What about the rest of the board members? What's your thoughts? I kind of feel like,
I was wondering how many of them could be done remotely or.
yes.
Yep.
And we can set those up virtually if there's a need. Like I said, we're going to limit those presentations, and we'll screen those as the requests come in, because sometimes they'll just check, yes, they'd like to appear before the board, but it's really no need to. So if it's the wish of the board, we'll set them all up virtually.
Mr. Hinkle, thoughts?
Mr. Chairman.
Ah, he's there.
Oh,
Well,
Mr. Hogan.
Oh, I'm here. I couldn't hear y'all.
Oh.
But
Welcome.
I did catch the last couple of minutes there of conversation. Am I correct that last year, well, they only came before the board if they were requesting an increase? Do we have many departments that are going to request an increase this year?
Not yet, but we haven't received all of the documents back yet. We sent out letters, and they're due by the end of next week.
Okay. I have no objection to trying to do some of this virtually if it can be done.
Good job. Yeah, Mr. Hinkle.
I agree.
Okay. Mr. Hibbs. I know what Mr.
one way you could do is, if they did it virtual, and any one person said, I want them to come before us, the one objection rule, then we would have them come before us. Somebody wasn't clear on what they were asking for, virtual and wanted them to come testify, we could do that.
Yeah, that's good. That's really being open. Yes. Okay. Ms. Adams? Yeah. So really, we need to kind of operate under the same rules as last year? Okay, so we don't need no motions or nothing on that?
No.
Okay.
Later on in the meeting, you'll be just adopting this budget. I mean, budget work calendar, sorry. You won't adopt the budget. Let's hope not.
That would be something.
I know. Rather quickly, being we have no numbers from the state yet, so. What about, do you want me to talk to Dr. Bennett about possibly arranging a virtual between the two boards, or do we want that in person on the 11th?
Virtual would suit me, it's up to the rest of the board, though. I'll do anything, it doesn't make any difference. I can come to the meeting or not. Let me just say, I have no position, whatever the rest of the board wants to do.
Okay.
Mr. Hogan, you hear that?
Yes, sir. My only concern would be it's probably been a year and a half or more since we've met with the school board. It might be beneficial to meet in person. I don't know.
Mr. Hinkle?
I'm like Watt, whatever the board decides.
Yeah. Mr. Hips?
Why don't we do what? Well, Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hogan?
why don't we just go ahead and schedule the meeting, and the folks that want to come in person can come in person, and the folks that, for whatever reason, need to appear virtually can do that. I mean, would that be okay to do that?
Mm-hmm. That works.
That works.
Or the majority may go that way. And, my only question was, as far as meeting in the admin conference room, pretty small space.
We're only doing that twice because my thought process on that, immediately following the school board work session, if there's something that you need to discuss,
Okay.
we usually go back over to the conference room. You may determine after that that we don't need to talk about anything. But I wanted to get it in and get it advertised just in case you did. And the other one that's in the other in March, I was thinking by March, hopefully we'll be able to meet. If not, we can just announce the change of location back over here. I'm hoping by March we won't need these work sessions anyway,
You're right.
because it's a short General Assembly session, so our numbers are going to come in a lot quicker. So. My fingers are crossed on that.
Okay.
Okay, so in your booklet, this is your guide for the next 3 months. So the first section between the two orange pieces of paper, that's the revenue budget. And as you notice, what we did was we did 2019 first column, 2020, and these are actual numbers that were appropriated in the budget. They're not actual numbers received, okay? So that'll give you a baseline on every year, how much it increased or decreased. In 2021, we've got 2 columns. And the reason we did that, the first column is what was actually appropriated in the budget, and the second column is current to date, what's received and what's been posted. So that shows actual revenues in the 4th column. And then the 5th column will be your working column to put in your numbers or any questions you have. So most of the revenue that's inserted, you won't have to do a whole much work on that at all. Now, if you go to the second orange sheet, you have your expenditure budget. That one's set up just a little bit different. We didn't put actual column. We put 2018, 19, 20, and then 21. So, and that's the appropriated amount in the budgets. As we work through it, there will be a couple of numbers we'll be getting you to change because what this budget reflects if there was an amendment, like a supplemental appropriation that you made throughout the year, that adds it to that total in the FY21 column. So we'll make adjustments so that you're not increasing the budget with those numbers. It's all arranged by departments and by fund, department, and line items. So your last two columns, you can make your notes, write things, but this is the document that we'll be using through the entire process. Are there any questions?
I'd just like to say, good job of getting this to us in the time frame that you all have. This is good.
Well, I probably could go in and fill in the 22 column, but I'll wait on that. We'll see what the requests look like. I will say that it looks like the revenues they're coming in on schedule. But I think something that we've talked about all along is this won't be the year we'll see the impact. It's the next 2 years. So we have to be conservative in working this budget because of what's going to happen over the next couple of years. Any
Okay.
questions?
Any questions from anyone?
You said we'll have our audit within, what, 3 or 4 weeks, 2 weeks?
They'll make the presentation. I'm sending you an email tonight that has the rough draft attached to it. Those numbers are not to be publicized or anything because they've got to insert the OPEB numbers before this audit can be presented. But I asked the auditor today, would it be okay to go ahead and distribute it to the board so that you can start reviewing it, and then you can have questions when he comes in February to give his report.
He will get us his final audit before he comes before us.
He brings the final. Now, the
When
financial
he
part of
brings
it,
When he brings the final, it's hard to go into the questions.
not much is going to change, only the liabilities because of the OPEB.
Okay.
As far as the numbers for the school operating budget and the county operating budget, they'll remain the same that's in the draft audit.
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Any other questions, concerns?
I think you'll be proud of yourselves how well we did this year in 2020.
Well, that's good news to hear, as always.
Yeah.
Okay, Ms. Adams, you have anything else there?
No, sir, Mr. Carter.
Okay. Well, while you have the floor, do you want to enter into administrator's report?
Sure. You have before you a copy of the report. I have several attachments that may be a benefit. The first thing is I want you to notate that there will be a solar farm tour and presentation. Dominion contacted me. I think Johnny had previously contacted you, and he was going to arrange it. In the meantime, Dominion calls and says, we would like to come to your board and provide an update on renewable energy. So they're scheduled to come in March, weather permitting. We may plan a site tour for that day. But more to follow on that. The audit update, I just provided that on what the delay is and what OPEB means in GASB 75. And basically, it's government reporting standards that every localities have to follow. And it talks about the liabilities with retirees and, preparing to retire. And if they had to do it's an actuarial valuation report. So that has to be inserted, but it has to be performed by a third party, which is a certified independent CPA. So that's why there's a delay, because there was a disconnect in getting that information from the CPA to the auditors to insert into the report.
You've already got the third party.
Yes, that's being finalized as we speak, yes. The vaccination update, some of you may be getting questions from your constituency, and I've given an update there on our assessment for county employees, how many are planning on getting the vaccine, how many are not. And also, there's a handout with this that kind of talks about for your community what to do. It's COVID vaccine phased handout. So if you have anybody asking, that will be a little guidance to tell them when they can expect to receive their vaccines and how it's prioritized. At last month's meeting, I believe it was, Tom mentioned the county food beverage tax and the cigarette tax, and the board had requested that staff provide some type of report on the impact. I've included those reports with this newsletter. Johnny Rourke prepared it, and there's one memo on county food and beverage tax, and the other's on cigarettes tax. So in the next few months, we'll be talking about whether the board would like to consider imposing any of those taxes or not. Everything else I included on last month's report about economic development. Carver Price will be coming in February to talk to the board. And when the COVID guidelines, the restrictions are lifted, we would like to invite the families of Russell Moore and Dr. Paul Harvey to attend the meeting and present the resolutions that staff's prepared. So coming together is a beginning, keeping together is progress, and working together is success. Staff, thanks to you, Board of Supervisor members, for the many successes of 2020, and we appreciate the support that you've shown to staff throughout all the COVID crisis, and especially with the recent bonus that you provided to them. So all good wishes as we enter into a new year. Any questions?
Well, on behalf of the board, we appreciate you and your staff
Thank you.
for the work. Yes, indeed.
I did provide another copy in your packet of all of our Board of Supervisor meetings, if you want to put it on your refrigerator, as well as school board meeting calendars. So now you have all your dates before you.
Any questions for the county administrator? Any issues, concerns? Okay. We still got a little bit of time. Eric, how much time you need, sir?
How much time do I need for the county attorney's report?
Uh-huh.
I don't think it's going to be much. There's really only one item that I have, and that is that the county was deeded a little piece of property from a will of a certain gentleman, Mr. Combs, who passed away. And the value is most recently assessed at $17,200. State law, for most people, would just, if a certain piece of property is willed to you, then it's just yours automatically. But for a county, the county actually has to accept it. So the board would have to make a decision about whether we want this or not. I have printed out just a map to give you a little bit of an idea where this is. Would you all like to just distribute that between yourselves?
Mr. Hogan,
Yes, ma'am.
it's located on Swan Road, and it's adjacent to Florence Hicks' property. Do you know where we're talking about?
No. What's the name of the individual?
It's Johnny Combs.
Is it about an acre?
I think.
That's right.
Uh-huh.
That's right.
Okay.
1.46.
Yeah, I know where it's at. Not real sure what the county would do with it, where it's located. I guess we could sell it.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I talked about this with Ms. Dixon and with Ms. Adams prior to the meeting. And it was particularly, it was willed over for purposes of Parks and Rec. So Ms. Dixon's position was that we could sell the land and then use the revenue from that sale to benefit Parks and Rec. And the lot is completely wooded, it's surrounded by privately owned property. So might not be best for use as a park per se, but it could still benefit Parks and Rec.
It sounds like it, yeah.
And I talked with the attorney for the executor of the estate. She indicated that there were no mortgages, liens, or any encumbrances on title or anything like that.
No stumbling blocks for the county.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Ebb, do you know where this is located?
Belt.
Belt, okay.
I think David Hicks's family.
Okay.
I think if,
Not far.
it's surrounded, I think, by Hicks property, and it's, if I remember correctly, it's on Swan Road between Crane Creek and the pipeline. It's on a hillside, probably not a lot. I don't know of any benefit it would be to the county to own it.
Other than what Eric named.
John, can y'all pull up the GIS map on the county? It's got road frontage. It's a little parcel with road frontage.
Shows right much road frontage.
Did you say that the will did not indicate
I don't know what we
his
need with
wishes?
it.
Yeah, it didn't have any stipulations about what we can do with it.
Would you just sell it at public, if we sold it, would we just sell it at public auction?
I guess we have a choice.
Yeah, it would be a public auction.
Seal bids, public, or, yeah.
Yes.
It's put in Combs, C-O-M-B-S, Johnny. Under
Mr.
name.
Chairman, can I ask a question?
And it's right much wooded area, Mr. Hogan?
I think it's all wooded.
Map it.
Hardwood or?
Hardwood. If
Really?
the county doesn't
Map it.
accept it, what happens?
If you reject it, what did Tom say if you
Yeah,
reject it?
sure. If you reject it, then the gift just lapses back into the estate, and it would be distributed to his other beneficiaries.
I'm having a hard time hearing Eric.
Pull you, yeah.
If the county, if the county rejects the deed to the property, then the gift would just lapse, and it would be distributed to the other beneficiaries of the estate.
Let's go back to this.
Okay.
X off of that.
Do we have to make a decision tonight?
No. Wait a minute, we don't have to
All right,
make a decision.
click on
tonight.
the
There's no
parcel.
deadline.
No deadline.
There it is. Oh, go back. That's it.
You know, my first thoughts is retain the timber there, sell it, give it to the Department of Recreation, and sell the land, do the same thing. That's what my first thoughts were, but I don't know how that would go over.
Well, it's hard to sell the timber if it's only an acre of land. That's
Yeah.
what-
Be very little.
If we're gonna sell the land, it would probably be more valuable with the timber on it.
Rec, is that what he wanted us to use it for?
Well, technically what the will says is that it is deeded to the Appomattox County Department of Parks and Recreation. So it doesn't say what purpose it can be used for, and there's no restriction on the use or what we can do with it or whether we have to keep it or sell it.
It looks like to me, well, think about it, it looks like to me to sort of sell and give Parks and Rec the money or find a project they have to spend it on.
Lighting,
Yeah. Put it,
Yeah,
lighting.
right.
they definitely can use that. Thoughts, Mr. Hogan?
I couldn't hear much of that last part of the conversation other than it was deeded actually to the Department of Recreation.
Well, sell it and give the proceeds to the recreational department.
Give proceeds to one of their
Yeah.
projects, like lighting.
That sounds like an appropriate thing to do with it. I
Everybody
mean,
agree?
it's not enough to make a park out of it.
Okay.
So, yeah, that works for me.
Mr. Chairman, if that's the consensus, then we'll just need a motion to authorize you as chair to sign an acceptance.
Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Is there a second? Let's see, if I do a roll call vote on this, Mr. Hinkle.
Aye.
Mr. Hibbs.
Aye.
Mr. Hogan.
Aye.
Mr. Abbott.
I too.
I also vote aye. Okay, thank you, Eric.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Anything else?
That's all.
All right. Now we're getting back on schedule. Anybody out there, John? Okay. Well, next on the agenda is its citizen public comment period. Is anybody out there? No. Is anybody here to comment? Okay. We'll move on.
The county attorney may want to introduce his wife.
Oh, excuse me. I thought, you me tell you what I thought. I thought it was Innsbruck News and Daily Advance.
This is my lovely wife, Meg. We married on July 4th.
Oh, right.
Congratulations.
Yeah, congratulations.
I did think you were from the media, so.
I did too, yeah. Well, we welcome you to that board meeting. Well, can't do that.
Oh, Ms. Crump is participating virtually,
Who?
the first person. Ms. Crump.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
That's at,
It's not a public hearing, it's.
yeah, is she on the line?
Mhm.
Okay, okay. Mrs. Crump, can you hear me?
He's unmuting her now.
I can hear you, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Wonderful. How are you gentlemen doing this evening?
We're doing fine, thank you. How about you?
Despite all these challenges, I think I'm doing okay.
Okay. Ms. Crump is to address any questions concerning the scenic river designation for the James River. Ms. Dixon discussed the designation with Mrs. Crump, who offered the following. The evaluation of Allen Creek to the county line is already accomplished, so nothing else needs to be done. If the county is interested in extending upstream, that has some responsibilities and would require Amherst to be on board. Okay, Ms. Crump, you want to talk a little bit about this?
Yeah, so I'll talk briefly. I'll give you just an overview, and then I'm here to answer any questions that the board may have. The Scenic Rivers program is 50 years old. The sections of the James River have been designated since the 1980s. In 2018, we got invitation from counties along the middle section, including Nelson, Albemarle, Buckingham, and Fluvanna County, and the town of Scottsville, to consider establishing a designation on that section. Yes, ma'am?
Gone.
Should I continue?
What's she say?
You're breaking up.
Hello?
Hello, you're breaking up.
Okay, let me try. Is this better?
Yes.
Okay. So the Scenic Rivers program is 50 years old. In 2018, we had several people, several local counties ask for the designation on the Middle James. Right now, we have 36 river segments throughout the state. 960 miles are designated. And in 2019, Nelson County asked for the section of river in Nelson County to be considered and studied for designation. September of this 2020, and it was found to qualify, and now we're looking for resolutions of support from each of the adjacent counties.
And I missed that. Who asked for some more information on it, or? whatever, you said Amherst?
Nelson.
Nelson.
Nelson. So there were requests from Nelson, Buckingham, Albemarle, and Fluvanna counties.
So there has been some questions about Appomattox getting engaged in this.
Yes, sir, because you all are across the river from a section of Nelson County from Allens Creek to your Buckingham Appomattox County line.
Could I ask a
Mr.
question,
Abbott.
Mr. Abbott? This is Watkins Abbott. Are you designating it farther than Allens Creek to the Buckingham line, or are you doing it the whole way of Nelson?
It's the whole way of Nelson, and Nelson has passed a resolution supporting that, and so now we're looking for that section because both sides of the river have to show support.
Let me, if I might continue, Mr.
Yes, sir.
Chairman. Is there a bill in the General Assembly to establish that this year?
A bill has not come forward, but there is one that's been given to the legislative committee, to legislative office to consider, and they're waiting for resolutions of support.
Well, the deadline is passed for introducing legislation in the General Assembly, and maybe you can get a unanimous
Right.
consent. If I might, Mr. Chairman, just
Yes, sir.
for a second, she talked about the scenic river has been in effect for 50 years. I worked on an original bill to set up the scenic rivers. I worked on the first scenic rivers. I'd gotten out of college and became and canoed. In essence, the only thing the scenic river, other than designate, said this is a beautiful section of river and should be set aside, it stops anyone from building a dam or doing a structure in the river. Okay, so if you wanted to dam up the river there, you would have to go to the General Assembly and get permission for it. And I will say, in this section is one unique feature of the James River Smith Islands. It's about 200 acres of Smith Islands, and when I started canoeing in there in the late 60s, there was still a tobacco barn on it. They used to farm them, but now it's owned by a timber company, and they've set it aside and allow camping and so forth. But it is a pretty section of river with maybe 100 different islands ranging from 10 acres to 3 or 4 square feet. Am I correct in that, ma'am?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it does have its advantages.
It does. It recognizes it. In some areas, it's brought a lot of tourism in, and that people want to paddle it and see it because it is set aside as a special part of a river.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Hinkle.
I have a question about it. It says a statement here that says that this would come with some responsibilities. What would be those responsibilities on the county?
Did you hear that, Ms. Crum?
Yes, sir, I did. That's kind of the only responsibility is the ones that the county decides to take on for themselves. In other words, the state does not have any controls over any zoning or land use. What we do have is we have the opportunity to comment on any permit requests that come through the state anyway, like those that come through DEQ or the Virginia Marine Agency or federal comments. And that's only to comment on scenic aspects of the river. We don't comment on other aspects of the river. And so there are 13 criteria that were taken into account when we did the study of that section of river. And it's a culmination of their total points that is considered when we do that. There is online a report that addresses all of those points and talks about the attributes of that river, but I know that's a long answer to your original question was, what are the responsibilities? How much a county or community takes advantage of this designation in terms of using it for quality of life contentions, planning and design works, or promotion of the community is entirely up to the community.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Abbott.
Let's bring us Watkins Abbott again. And I think it's a good idea to make a designation, but I'd like to make one point. I don't believe any of that river is in Appomattox County. There is, I believe, a law in the books that says all the western counties control all the river. So the river does, we don't go to the middle of the river. We only go to the high water mark. Is that correct?
I'd have to look at a map to confirm that, but in either case, it would still be adjacent to the river, and so therefore you would be required or requested to pass the resolution supporting it, because from Allen's Creek to the Buckingham County line is, I think it's 3.5 miles that is in Appomattox County.
Just claim I own land on that.
Yeah. Mr. Hogan,
Mr. Chairman.
any questions? Yes, sir.
Just one question for Ms. Crump, I guess. She mentioned that about the structures. You couldn't build any structure. Maybe Mr. Abbott mentioned it. You couldn't build a structure in the river in that area. Would that include docks or private boat landings?
No, it only means dams.
Okay.
Mr. Hill, questions?
I think any opportunity to protect a waterway is a good one, so I don't see any disadvantages in it.
Okay. Okay. Well, thank you, Ms. Crum. And we will,
Sir,
we will take a vote now on the
Wonderful.
on the adoption of the Scenic River designation in Appomattox County. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Crum.
thank you. I look forward to getting a signed resolution from you all. Have a good evening.
Yes, ma'am. You too.
Frankly, I just went on her presentation, I'd have voted against it. Anyway.
Okay, gentlemen, ladies, we've been through the budget calendar. We've been through the supervisor's meeting calendar. Next,
Adopted those,
ma'am,
you have not adopted those.
okay,
Budget calendar.
budget calendar, item number 3. We've had a overview of it. Is there a motion to adopt the FY22 work budget session as presented?
So moved.
All right, is that a second?
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I know you hadn't had a chance to see it, Mr. Hogan, or have you?
Oh, yeah.
You have?
It's
Okay.
online.
Okay, next is number 4, Board of Supervisors meeting calendar. Is there any discussion on that?
Mr. Chairman, this is the exact same we adopted last at our organizational meeting, isn't it?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Well, we passed out a copy to be adopted tonight.
Just be, yes. So is there a motion to adopt?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Oh, pardon me. Okay. Item number 5, under action items, MOU for COVID-19 Municipal Utility Relief Program implementation with the town of Pamplin. Attached for our review and consideration is a memorandum of understanding for COVID-19 Municipal Utility Relief Program implementation with the town of Pamplin. The town of Pamplin has been awarded $2,035 $1,022.93 with the town of Pamplin, okay? In the CARES Act, that $2,035.93 in CARES Act funds to assist with municipal utility customer relief for all eligible customers of the town of Pamplin. The agreement mirrors the MOU that the board approved at the December meeting. These funds are pass-through funds from the locality, which is Appomattox County, as physical agent to the town of Pamplin, in which the agreement explains the responsibility of both parties. Having read that very poorly, I have to make an excuse here. I didn't have my glasses tonight.
I would give you mine, but I can't read it.
Oh, Lord. At any rate, whatever, we've had a chance to review this. Is there any questions concerning this MOU with the town of Pamplin?
It just makes us a fiscal agent, right?
Mr.
That's
Chairman,
it.
Okay. Which is required.
Uh-huh. Okay, is there a motion to adopt this MOU?
Mr. Chairman, I move we adopt.
Okay, motion duly made, is there a second? Further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
aye.
Next is the Commissioner of the Revenue Refund Request. Mrs. Sarah Henderson, Commissioner of the Revenue, is requesting the following to be paid from the item line 1209/5803. 1. Refund Jason Self, $329.92 for 2020 personal property taxes. He was assessed in another locality. 2. Refund Douglas A. and Denise Goodard, $72.65 for the first half personal property taxes. They moved out of Virginia in June of 19. In the discussion on those two refunds. Hearing none, is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Further
Second.
in discussion? Mr. Hogan, you said something?
I was just seconding the motion.
Excuse me. Okay. All in favor of this, please signify by saying aye.
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 Okay. Gentlemen, on committee appointments, I would like to table this till February meeting, unless somebody's got a problem with it. Okay. Next is the consent agenda. The consent agenda includes approval of bills, minutes, supplemental appropriations, line item transfers, and fund transfers. Any item on the consent agenda shall be removed from the consent agenda at the request of any board member prior to the vote of the consent agenda. Items removed from the consent agenda shall be considered by the board individually in order in which they were removed from the consent agenda, immediately following consideration of the consent agenda. And gentlemen, I call your attention to the consent agenda that you have before you. Hope you've had an opportunity to review the consent agenda as is. Any discussion on it? Any issues or concerns?
We adopt
Mr.
it.
Chairman,
All right, motion been
No,
duly
wait,
made.
Wait, you got a question?
Yes, sir, Mr. Abbott. Excuse me, Mr. Hogan?
yeah, Mr. Chairman, just one small correction. I noticed in the meeting minutes from the January 4th organizational meeting, the address from which I was participating remotely was missing one digit. It's 2004.
Okay,
Other
thank
than
you.
that, then I'll, that's the only question I had.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hogan. So the motion's been made by Mr. Abbott. Is that second?
Second.
Further discussion? Roll call vote. Mr. Hinkle.
Aye.
Mr. Hips.
Aye.
Mr. Hogan.
Aye.
Mr. Abbott.
Aye.
I also vote aye.
Mr. Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
what about the social services supplement request?
Yes, sir, Bob. We'll get to that right now. Ms. Adams,
Yes, sir.
you have before you, from the social services, the letter, I know all of us do.
Yes, all of you have the letter and also the request. At the December meeting, when we had the public hearing for employee bonuses, it was not specified that social services would receive that bonus. So in order to appropriate the funds for that, because they're a separate operating fund, the board would have to take action if you chose to do so. What they're requesting is $11,841.50. That's half of the total cost of what it would cost their department to provide the $1,000 funds for bonuses for the employees. And you have a letter, that's a letter of request from the Social Services Director, Brad Burdette. I spoke with him on the phone as well as asked him to submit this letter. And in that letter, he talks about the programs and the services that they have been providing throughout the COVID crisis. I did explain to him they thought that was hazard pay bonuses for working through COVID, and I told him the only people that received the hazard pay were the law enforcement and code enforcement employees, that this was actually local funds that were redistributed from the COVID money for the purpose of the bonuses.
I must say, we had a DSS meeting this morning, and I've always been under the impression, and I'm subject to be wrong, that through the years, there have been raises or money from the state, if you will, I repeat that, state, that the DSS has received, whereas naturally the county did not. I was reminded that in April of 2015, the state gave social services, or the DSS, an increase. I was at that meeting and knew that the county, meaning the county and the school, et cetera, and all associations with the county, received nothing that year, absolutely nothing. And in regard to that, it would be a dramatic turmoil if DSS received this monetary increase. I know in the past and present that when they do get an increase and all, we are not subject to knowing about it. That's my take. That's what I know. I do know that the employees of that department think they are county employees. Now, in saying that, correct me if I'm wrong, they have not signed no MOU or anything to that,
No. And they're not required to.
and they're not required to.
I might ask, they looked at state employees, retirement, health insurance. Told them, I think we gave the people in this county employees the raise that should get it, Mr. Chairman. I think we've done that.
Okay.
I don't mean the raise, I'm sorry, the bonus.
Right, yes. Thoughts, Mr. Hogan?
I guess I have two concerns. Number one, if we do this for these state employees, what other state employees are going to come knocking on the door? The health department, the general district courts, the J&G courts, and I don't know who else. And then number two, in Mr. Burnett's letter, he said they had 22 employees. If every one of them got 1,000, then that's only 22,000. So I'm a little curious as to where the extra money is going. Is it FICA or some other expense for the $1,000?
It's FICA.
Yeah, it's FICA.
Okay. And I appreciate them, covering half, but I still have the question, if we do this for these state employees, what other state employees are going to want it next?
Good point. Yes. Mr. Hinkle, any concerns or suggestions?
My concerns have been voiced.
Mr. Hibbs?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
may I provide a point of clarification?
Yes, ma'am.
So that everybody totally understands. Social services, they are under the county's payroll, although they perform that services, but it's integrated with their payroll and benefits. So that's the difference in, we do not pay other state employees on our payroll. I just wanted to provide that as a point of clarification, and that's what makes it a little difficult, because it's almost like they're hybrid employees, because they are included on our payroll, because every month you do a supplement, so the benefits and that's included. They just don't fall under our employee policies.
So everybody, I asked them, do you have any say in who they hire and who they fire?
No, sir, I don't. No.
What's the next agenda item, Mr. Chairman?
Yeah. I think that's it.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you understood that.
Right. And thank you for that clarification.
Okay.
Yes. That's VDOT, right?
So, Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, Mr. Hogan.
all right, so hearing Ms. Adams, so technically, these employees are county employees. We get reimbursed their salaries by the state, a portion of them?
Yes. The state does the screening for employment, and they set the pay scales. They are just passed through on our local payroll. I guess it's a simple way to put that.
We are passing through the state fund through our payroll, is what you're saying.
That's correct.
As Mr. Carter said, state gives them raises and doesn't give the county money to give a county employees raises.
Any other discussion on that? Okay, moving right along. Let's go into our public hearing. Public hearing, VDOT proposed secondary six-year plan, FY '21 through FY '26, and secondary system construction budget by '21. Jeff, you want to come on up? I didn't recognize you at first back there. With that mask on, see? Welcome.
Thank y'all for having me. My name's Jeff Sayre. I'm the Assistant Residency Administrator, and I work out the Appomattox Residency Office here in Appomattox. And Mr. Brown couldn't be here tonight because he had another meeting at the same time, unfortunately. So I'm presenting the six-year plan to you guys, and what had happened with the outbreak of COVID, our central office had directed us to postpone the normal one that would have taken place in the spring of 19. So they come back in November and said, no, we need one. So it's kind of a copy of what had already been in place. To kind of get you up to speed, the only secondary project that we have that's coming up, and that will be starting in July of '22, that is Route 604 Dreaming Creek Road. And the length of that is a 1.2-mile section. It's two sections broken down because of the expense of it. And that would start at the intersection of 721 and go west 1.2 miles. And we did complete Cub Creek this last fall, finished it right during the heavy rains, right at the end of that. So we was very fortunate to get that fixed up. And the only item that's added to this, you'll see in there is for drainage funds. And what our anticipation was for using that money is any type of small pipe structure that's not listed as a structure that our bridge section maintains, like a 24, 36, small pipes. We have been bombarded this year with damages to those small pipes. And we saw a need there to have some funds for emergency replacement of those size pipes to keep our roads open. And we will be doing this again, probably March and April. We'll be coming back to you guys for another 6-year plan approval. So this is kind of a, didn't make sense to us, but we have to follow the rules.
Understand.
Do I have any questions from anybody?
Any questions from anyone? Mr. Hogan, you have any questions?
Is this different from the 6-year rural rustic plan?
It's nothing different. It's the list of the unpaved secondary routes in the county. And of course, the ones that are on the list, as they get the funding appropriated, we start construction. And this is just the same plan that we had before you guys last year, other than adding the drainage category for small pipes to have a funding way to repair those.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or concerns? Okay, here now, and thank you, Mr. Say.
Thank you.
It's good to see you
Thank
again.
you.
May I ask,
Ms. Adams.
do you have a resolution that the board needs to pass tonight?
I do.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, you've got copies of that? Or?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just hearing what Ms. Adams just said. Is there a motion then to approve?
Mr. Chairman, this will, I'm over here.
Oh, there you.
This is kind of a silly technicality, but I have to bring it up anyway. The state code requires us for this program to invite public comment. I know it's unlikely anyone is here to public comment, but we have to open up the floor.
Still a public hearing,
This
that's
is a
right.
public hearing.
And normally, public comment isn't required, but for this particular item, it is.
Right,
No one signed up.
yep.
I guess you can state that.
Nobody signed up? Okay, thank you. Thank you, yes.
Do y'all want the resolution? Susan?
It's probably the same one they passed last year? Okay. It's basically what you have in your board book, and we just have to sign off stating that the board adopted by resolution.
Oh, yeah, is there a motion to approve? Oh, wait a minute, let me close this public hearing.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
before we, I got one more question for the gentleman from VDOT.
Uh-huh.
All right, so if I have a road in my district that constituents have asked about looking at getting paved, would now be the appropriate time to bring that up, or would that do that at the next hearing in April?
The hearing in April would be the one would be the best one to bring it up at, that's when all the roads that's in the list, the county has a priority list, and, you guys can, that's why we have a list, a priority list. If there's something that takes precedence over one that was created 2 years ago, that's y'all's opportunity to move stuff around. So each year,
Okay.
you have the opportunity to do that.
Understood. Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
Again, thank you, Mr. Sayers.
Yes, sir.
Any other comments, questions? All right, hereby close this public hearing. Now, is there a motion?
I'll move that we adopt the resolution for the 6-year plan.
Thank you. Is that second?
I'll second, Mr. Chairman.
Motion been duly made and second. Further discussion? All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Now. Next is reports and informational items. you have before you. Any discussion on any of those items? Hearing none. Next, we'll move into supervisor concerns. Mr. Hogan.
Just one, Mr. Chairman. I had a brief conversation with the treasurer, and I don't know, I guess back in June, we period, if you will, for delinquent tax payments. And I don't know if it's necessary to do that for December. I just kind of wondered how those numbers were coming in. And if it looks like most folks are paying on time, we won't have to worry about it. But if we've got a significant number of late payments, is that something we should look at again?
Let me defer that to our county administrator.
I think based on the December report from the treasurer, as well as our revenue report that's included in the budget board book, the budget work session book, it appears that the revenues are coming in on schedule. I can certainly.
Okay, that's great. I just wanted to make sure that we didn't have another issue with people still being out of work or having problems paying their taxes, whether we need to extend that deadline again.
I can address it with the treasurer just to confirm what I just
Yeah,
stated.
but if they're coming in like they're supposed to, then I'm fine with leaving it alone.
Okay, Ms. Adams will be checking on that. Mr. Hogan, while you're on the line now, can you state your address, location, and where you are participating from?
Yes, sir. I'm participating from 2004 Swan Road in Pamplin.
Thank you, sir. Okay, supervisor concerns other than that, Mr. Hogan?
No, sir.
Okay, Mr. Hinkle?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I've been contacted by a couple of my constituents feeling that this board needed to make a resolution regarding the January 6 activities at the Capitol. And my response would be that as soon as the people who have sat quiet and not said anything about the billions of dollars of property damages that occurred all summer and the big loss of lives that occurred all summer and the insightful rhetoric coming from those politicians now who want to condemn others for January 6th, that until those people step up and admit their fault and condemn the actions of their supporters, I don't see where this board would be open to condemning the January 6th activity.
President, Mr. Hinkle, I think you couldn't have said it any better.
Amen.
Amen, yes. Mr. Hibbs?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Abbott?
Thanks for the quick meeting, Mr. Chairman.
Thank y'all.
Amen.
Everybody have a safe journey home, and guess what? Mr. Abbott?
I move we rise, Mr. Chairman.
Right. Eric, be careful, you and the bride.